Hey everybody, Bearded Rogue here. This vlog is incredibly late, mostly because I'm not feeling very well. Everybody in my house is kind of down with a cold at the moment, my son, my wife. Um, so it's not been a great day. Didn't record a vlog last night in preparation for today because I was hoping that I would get some sleep and feel better this morning, and while I do feel better, I'm not 100% just yet. I was hoping to use the weekends to go over my own designs. However, I'm finding some severe limitations in my setup. Right now, I record everything on my iPhone. I don't have a tripod or a different camera or anything like that. It's just all 100% stream of consciousness into my iPhone. And as such, it's proving really problematic to try to film any of my actual game components. So instead of trying to figure all of that out while I'm sick, I'll work on that in the background, and I'll just give you a quick rundown of some of the things that I'm working on, and I can hold some of the components up so that you can get kind of an idea of what it is that I'm working on. Again, I apologize. I was hoping that I could show off some, much nicer videos of the components of my games, but unfortunately that's not going to be able to happen today. So hopefully later on this month I'll have figured it out, and we'll go from there. So, what am I working on? Well, I'm working on a lot of games. The game that is the most complete at this point is a game called Elements. You'll probably see this as the banner of my Twitter account. I'm using this artwork everywhere. It was done by Talon Strike Studios, Jason Washburn. He is an amazing artist. He's amazingly good to work with. He's really quick. He does a fantastic job, as you can see. That's super great artwork. The front of the card is awesome as well. Elements is a game that I actually pitched at Origins in the publisher Speed Dating and got a decent reception on. I'm still waiting for some publishers to make a decision one way or another as to whether or not it's going to be published, but it's kind of in my rear view at this point. Not that I think it's a bad game, not that I think that there's anything wrong with it, but it's kind of done. There's not a lot more design crunchiness for me to engage in with that one. There's a few graphic design things that I want to work with Jason on, tweaking in the final images for the cards and everything like that, but for the most part, Elements is a finished game. Whether it's fun for you or not, as Daniel Salas likes to say, this soup is a very horrible cake. Every game is up to personal preferences, and I have some people who really love it and some people who really don't, which is a better reaction than everybody just kind of being meh. Either way, I'm really excited about it. It's my first game, and I've learned a whole lot about how to design games, how to pitch games, how to playtest games. So even if that one never goes anywhere, which still, fingers crossed, it's been very valuable to me as a learning process of how to do this, and a reason to actually get out of my house. I'm a long-time lurker on pretty much every forum you can imagine. I'm familiar with a lot of what's been happening in the board game industry, but I haven't really put myself out there, and Elements was kind of the impetus for that. It was something that I was sharing with people in my local group, and they felt it was really good, and I just kept working on it, and working on it, and working on it, and iterating, and iterating, and iterating, as you do with designs, and finally they were like, you should really show this to somebody, outside your group. This is good, and so we kind of just branched out from there. I mean, I went to Unpub because of it, did a lot of playtesting, met a whole ton of cool people, got on Twitter because of Unpub, and now I'm doing videos because I got on Twitter. So it all kind of grew from that one game. So Elements has been incredibly valuable to me, even if it never gets published. So what else am I working on? Well, that's the game that I was working on. Now, I've got several different games that I'm working on. The one I'm most excited about is a game called Build the Robots. And Build the Robots is a deck builder. It is not a traditional deck builder. It is, however, a deck builder. It uses a mechanic that I like to call the assembly line. I would love to show you the assembly line, but basically what it amounts to is that at the beginning of the game you start with 2 cards in play. You will, from a hand of 3 cards, play 1 card to the leftmost spot in that grouping of cards, and then you'll trigger all 3 of them. You'll get the effects of all 3. And then the rightmost card will fall off the bottom of your assembly line. The 2 cards in front will slide over, and you'll have a new spot for a brand new card to be played next turn. So each turn, your whole turn consists of playing 1 card, triggering 3 actions, and then cycling your assembly line. The one at the end falling off and you drawing a new card to your hand to give you a hand of 3 cards to choose from the next turn. That's the kind of the player actions of the game. Inside the game, you're a mad scientist. You hate your day job. Your day job is soul-crushing, and you are going to use the powers of mad science to build an army of robots to get out of it somehow. Whether it's conquering the world, or just in general building enough robots that you no longer have to worry about working at all. So you're building robots. You start out with 3, and over the course of the game you'll gather money and then plastic and steel, which will allow you to build more robots. And then you'll use those robots to conquer cities, and each city is actually a card that you can add to your deck. So you have a conquer cost, how much strength of robots you need to conquer it. And then it has the ability that it has when it's in your engine, when you play it on the table. How much it costs every time it activates, and then what you get when it activates. So they do very interesting things as far as that goes. They'll let you recharge your robots, deploy robots faster, build robots more efficiently. There are bank robbery cards that let you get more money than just working your day job. Your day job cards in your starter deck just give you A money. Bank robberies are much better than that. They give you 3 money every time they trigger. So you'll basically place your robots out into the field to acquire cards, or conquer cities in this case, and also to break continents. Each continent has its own display with its own tableau of 3 cards. And if there are ever more robots in that area than there are conquer cost of those cities, then the continent breaks. And whoever has the majority of robots there claims all of the cards that are remaining in there as points. They're worth points even if you add them to your deck, but when you break a continent, they go instead to your trash pile, which is where all of the cards that you get rid of throughout the game, including those from broken continents, go. So at the end of the game, whoever has the you add up points from the number of robots you have, you add up the points from the number of cities you've conquered, and then you add up all the points in your trash pile from continents that you've broken, and that determines who wins. So right now it's in alpha stages. Some of the cards are still handwritten. It just needs a lot more playtesting, but it's in a much better position than it was just a week ago and a week before that. I've only been working on it for about a month, and it's already almost to the point where I need to start considering graphic design enhancements to make it easier to read the cards and easier to play. Like, the rules themselves have kind of gelled into a pretty solid state at this point, and I think it's fun. My group has played it several times at this point, and they like it better than they liked Elements when Elements was at this point, so yay. Overall, it's a fun game. I'm really excited about it, and I want to kind of share it with everybody, and maybe if I can get my camera set up worked out, then I'll be able to actually show you guys. As far as other games that I'm working on, I actually have a small, I say small, but it's roughly 2 decks of cards. It's a space combat game called the Battle for Nebula 9, and in it, the Nebula 9 is actually not a nebula. In the future, wars are fought with gigantic clouds of nanites injected into space. And these nanites configure themselves into autonomous drones that fight each other kind of endlessly. So the war is long over, and humanity kind of avoids these, but these autonomous drones are still locked in endless combat. And you take on the role of those drones. Over the course of the game, you'll reconfigure your drone to use different weapons or different ship components like tractor beams and ablative armor and stuff like that. And your goal is to try to reach a certain kill count before anybody else to trigger the end of the game. So even if your drone is destroyed, you're not eliminated from the game. You just reconfigure a new drone and jump right back into the action. So there's no player elimination. All of the reconfiguring and all of the things you do cost energy, and the energy is measured actually with the cards in the deck and in your hand. So it works on a very Race for the Galaxy-esque cost mechanism where you discard cards in your hand in order to power your weapon systems or change your weapon systems from what they are into something else. You also use cards in hand to recharge your shields, which can recharge periodically to absorb damage and prevent damage from your from hitting your hull, which is your overall life, which never can go up over the course of the game. But it's in early development. It was a finished game a long time ago, but the game was extremely long, and it featured player elimination, and it really really sucked to be eliminated and then watch people play for another half an hour. So we kind of shrunk. I shrunk the scope of everything. So now it plays much faster. Everything costs less, and there's no player elimination. Instead, it's going to a set kill count triggers the end game. So that one I'm working on. It's pretty rough at this point. I don't have the math nearly balanced, but I'm starting to work out how the mechanisms work. I think my favorite part of it is that I was actually able to make the phases of the game spell out the word card, which is a dorky thing, but that's just kind of how I am. Let's see, what else? I designed a two-player deduction game called the Unnamed Baby Game right now, which is a horrible name for a game, but I can't think of a good name. The idea is you're two players and you're trying to put a set of twins to sleep. Each one of you is working with one twin, and because babies are inscrutable, and putting them to sleep is kind of like solving a logic problem. The idea is that both of you are trying to get your child to sleep, your baby to sleep, but you are working in the same environment. So, like, this baby that you have may want a blanket and music playing, and they may have wanted to have brushed their teeth as part of their routine, but you don't know that. Your opponent does know what it is that your baby needs to fall asleep. So kind of like Mastermind, I'll make changes to the area, like I'll put a blanket on my baby, turn on music, but I can only make 2 changes a turn. And then my opponent will tell me how satisfied the baby is, whether the baby's nearly asleep, or the baby's wide awake, or the baby went to sleep. If the baby goes to sleep, I win. However, my opponent's doing the exact same thing, so I may turn the music on, and then when it gets to the opponent's turn, they may turn the music off, because their baby doesn't want music. Their baby instead wants white noise playing, or whatever. So all the 2 players, it's only a 2-player game. It's like 20-some cards. I can't remember exactly the count. I think it's 26 cards. But you're just basically manipulating the environment to try to get your baby to go to sleep before your opponent's, and using logic and deduction to do so. So that's one that I've got. And then my other big design is a game called Dice Heroes. And I say it's a big design, but it's actually a small design that kind of has lots of room for expansion. So the original idea was I wanted to do a game that was 54 cards and tokens. And so in this case, I created a game, a cooperative dungeon crawler. It's totally abstract. There's no map. There's no grid. Instead, you've got each player takes on the role of a hero, and each hero has their hero card, and then they have 4 ability cards. So each hero is 5 cards total. And those 4 ability cards are double-ended, so you can kind of customize which way you want your hero to be. So you can either have one ability or the other ability up. And then it uses 8-sided dice. So there's a dice pool. Everybody rolls their dice. Everybody starts with 2 dice, and everybody rolls their dice and puts them into the center. And then players take turns claiming dice to trigger their abilities. And the different numbers on the dice determine which abilities that you can trigger. So each set was 4 heroes. The first set is, of course, Fighter, Wizard, Cleric, and Rogue. And each one of those is 5 cards, so that's 20 cards total. And then 8 dice, 2 for each hero. And then there was the dungeon deck, which was basically the rest of it. So I have a deck of kobolds, which are little weenie monsters with traps that you have to try to fight through. I have a deck of lizard men who have poison, which is damage over time, and they also have regeneration. So they're more of a grindy, brute type deck. And lots of other ideas for decks and lots of other ideas for heroes. I think I have like 14 different heroes right now that I've started creating and playing. And it's that game is just a really large balance problem at this point. I've got a lot of really good ideas, but I have to kind of refine everything down so that any combination of heroes can win against any dungeon, and that the dungeons all feel different. I want them all to be very unique. And not, like, they won't share mechanics other than a few things. Like, the basic mechanics of the game will be the same, but, like, the kobolds have traps, which behave totally differently than the lizard men's poison. The lizard men also, when you kill them, they drop loot, which gives you extra abilities that you as heroes can use collectively. Whereas the kobolds, at the end, after you've beaten all the kobolds, their big boss, who's a little baby dragonling, comes out to fight you, and the deck is reshuffled and used as the AI for that boss. The lizard men don't have a boss. They're instead just all bigger monsters. And then there's like a cultist's deck where this evil alien elder god starts in play with a whole bunch of tokens on him, and over time tokens are removed, and if the tokens are ever gone, then he's fully summoned into the world, and you're kind of in trouble. But the idea was that each would be a set of 4 heroes with 5 cards each, and then the rest of the cards in the 54 would all be the villain deck, the dungeon deck, and then you would have the 2 8-sided dice per player. And it works pretty well. It's gone through several tweaks. It's not quite as far along as Build the Robots, but that's mostly because I've just had to kind of move along. Also, I'm not an artist or a graphic designer, so while I try to take into consideration those kinds of things, usually I have to bring in outside help, or I have to spend a lot of hours in front of a computer to make it functional and work, since most of my stuff is done in MS Word or PowerPoint or some other program that isn't a graphic design document producing program. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. Those are the different games that I have. Build the Robots is probably the one that I'm going to be spending the most time on, with Dice Heroes being a close second. The Unnamed Baby Game is basically done. It just needs better artwork and to maybe be shopped around. May need a retheming, since putting babies to sleep is kind of awkward. I thought of maybe making it baby dragons, and the stuffed animal is a little stuffed princess, or the blanket is instead a pile of gold for them to sleep on. I don't know. I don't know exactly how I'll theme it, but I'm sure that that it's there. It's like I said, it's not a big game. And then I've got the Battle for Nebula 9, which is the one that's not very far along right now and is still... it's not even really ready to play with other people yet, other than the initial playtests with myself. So, yeah, that's kind of what I'm working on, and again, I'm sorry I couldn't actually show you guys these things, just because my camera setup is just an iPhone, and the shaky cam from when I did try was making me nauseous. I'm already sick, and I didn't need any help. So this is a really long video. If I knew how to edit videos, I would probably break it up into 2 videos, but right now I'm just going to go ahead and call it good. If you watched to the end of this, thank you very much, and I hope to show you guys more of what's coming from Bearded Rogues in the future, and thank you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.